Good evening, everyone. Welcome to McCarthy Observatory's June Second Saturday Stars virtual event. We have uh, news to share with you this evening. The observatory is now open again, and we are now accepting requests via email at mccarthyobservatory@gmail.com for private visits. And we're very excited to announce that July's Second Saturday Stars event will be in person for the first time since the pandemic started. Please check our website for details closer to the event. Tonight, we have a very important presentation by Monty Robeson on the McCarthy Observatory's response to the global emergency. Monty, you want to take it from here?
Thanks, John. So welcome everybody to our Second Saturday Stars. Our mission at the McCarthy Observatory is to further science literacy and critical thinking skills. So science is a human invention, and it's the best way we know of to understand the world and how it operates. The good thing about science is that it's self-correcting. When people make a discovery or have a theory about something, they report it, and others look at it and try and determine if that's right through experiment and observation. And if it is, they agree with him. If not, then they make their own proposals. So it's a self-correcting process that has brought us to the day we're in now. So here is our planet. It really is the most lovely thing in the sky. This was taken by the Apollo 17 astronauts on their way to the moon. And it's really an iconic image. Right in the middle of the image is Africa. That's where science tells us that our species, Homo sapiens, evolved. Up at the top of the image is the Fertile Crescent, where us humans made our most important discovery or invention, and that's agriculture. That was 10 to 12,000 years ago. And down at the very bottom is Antarctica. And if all the ice melted in Antarctica, it would raise the level of the sea by 200 feet, which would inundate most of the large and important cities around the world. Here is another picture of the Earth, that little dot in near the center of the picture. That was taken by the Voyager 1 spacecraft when it was almost 4 billion miles away from us. As you can see, we're all alone. There's nothing else near us. This is our only home, and it's the only place in the universe that is proven to have life on it. There's speculation about other places, but this is the only place that we know of for sure that has life, and we need to protect it. But we're not doing such a great job. Here is the latest of the NOAA's billion-dollar weather and climate disasters. Last year, and they put this out every year. Last year, 2020, the last full year, shattered the records for the number of billion-dollar disasters. There were 22 of them. And here you can see the trend. They've been doing this, putting this particular page out since 1980. That's 40 years. And this is the 41st year of it. As you can see, it's increasing. The number of billion-dollar disasters is increasing. And the trend for the cost involved is increasing. And the deaths are also. Last year, we lost almost 300 people to the weather and climate-related disasters. And by the way, that is adjusted for the Consumer Price Index. This is from the World Meteorological Organization. They say that the average temperature on Earth has reached 1.2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial era, which is pretty scary because the Paris Climate Agreement hopes to limit the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees if possible. In 2018, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, put out a paper that was maybe a little bit overdue on the difference between 1.5 degrees Celsius rise and 2-degree temperature rise. And the difference is striking. We'll be a lot better off if we can limit it to 1.5 degrees. Unfortunately, if everyone got on their commitments to the Paris Agreement, temperatures would probably rise on the order of 4 degrees Celsius. So here is a plot of all the measurements that Charles Keeling started at the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii. In the late 50s is when he started, and the parts per million is the way they express the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, was just under 320 parts per million. And now you can see it's up to 420. So on June 2nd, it was over 420. It was not 421, but getting close. Notice that sawtooth pattern there. I'll tell you what that's about. Here's a blow up from 2016 to the current day of the monthly mean carbon dioxide in parts per million. So the peak of the amount of carbon dioxide every year happens usually in April or May. Okay, and then you can see that the percentage goes down rapidly. That's because photosynthesis in the northern hemisphere has kicked in and is absorbing that carbon dioxide. Photosynthesis is the only way that I know of that is proven to remove great amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And so as the northern hemisphere growing season continues, it goes down and down and down until October. And then in October, it hits the bottom, and because the photosynthesis is vastly reduced in the northern hemisphere, and it goes back up. So if you want to prove this to yourself, it's easy enough to do. Take a globe and look above the North Pole. Look down the globe from the North Pole, and what you'll see is a good deal of land. And then if you flip it over and look at the Earth from the South Pole, you'll see it's mostly water. There's South America and Australia, but it's mostly water and a few islands. And here's 1 year of carbon dioxide parts per million from Mauna Loa Observatory. And you can see it was last May on the left was pretty high, and then it goes down, down, down until September or October, and then back up and peaks again in April or May. So in 1972, The Limits to Growth was published. It was updated in 1992 with a book called Beyond the Limits, and again in 2004. It tracked population, food production, industrial production, pollution, and the consumption of non-renewable resources through time based on exponential growth. And what they saw was overshoot and collapse as a result. So they recommended that we slow things down, slow down the growth. But of course, we didn't. In 2009, Johan Rockström and 28 other scientists introduced the concept of planetary boundaries that must not be transgressed to keep the Earth livable. So the first thing was climate change. The second thing was the rate of biodiversity loss. The third was nitrogen and phosphorus and probably other biogeochemical cycles. Then stratospheric ozone depletion, ocean acidification, global freshwater use, change in land use, atmospheric aerosol loading, it's particulate matter in the atmosphere, and chemical pollution. So we are above the boundaries in the first three: climate change, biodiversity loss, and nitrogen cycles. The nitrogen cycles and phosphorus, they're primarily from our agriculture. The fertilizer that's being used on the world's farms is spread on the ground, and then when it rains, it washes off. A lot of it gets into the streams and works its way into rivers and out to the ocean. So what happens when it hits the ocean is that the algae, it's fertilizer for algae also. So there's an algae bloom. And then from that, and from when the algae die and biodegrade, it takes the oxygen out of the water. So around the majority of the world's biggest rivers, the estuaries, and out into the oceans, there are dead zones where fish and shellfish can't live if they require oxygen, which they do. They can't live because it's been sucked out by the as a result of the nitrogen runoff. Biodiversity loss is the scariest one to me. We're losing species at a rate that is just unheard of. It's such that we're in the midst of the 6th great mass extinction. Species are now becoming extinct at about 1,000 times the normal background rate, which is well over the planetary boundary. This includes everything. The vertebrates that the world Fund for Nature, it used to be the World Wildlife Fund. They've been tracking the amount of vertebrates, and they say that about over 60% of the vertebrate population of Earth has disappeared since 1970. That's terrifying to me. It's so bad that right now, only 4% of the world's mammals are wild. The rest of the 96% of the mammals on our planet are either humans or their livestock. Some argue that the Green New Deal would cost too much. Well, they're very wrong. The Green New Deal will be structured to create jobs, new jobs, good jobs, and protect all workers that it displaces. So Constanza and others in 2014 came out with a paper that argues that the services provided by nature are worth nearly twice the value of the entire world's annual gross domestic product. Here's a picture of the article in Global Environmental Change Journal. And one thing I highlighted there was the eco-services contribute more than twice as much to human well-being as global GDP. And here in the abstract, he says, depending on which way you figure it, in 2011, the amount of ecosystem services that humans received was 125 to 145 trillion per year. 145 trillion US dollars per year. Here's the World Bank's running world annual GDP. So in 2014, when the paper came out, it was just under 80 trillion. And now it's up closer to 90 trillion, but it's still nowhere near what we would have to pay if we had to clean our own water or our own atmosphere the way nature does, or provide the food or the lumber or the many other services that ecosystems provide us. And look, the issue, there are many issues with what we're doing to the planet. The sea level rise is part of the climate change issue. Even if we kept the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius, there's still the possibility that we've lost the ice on Greenland. It might not be able to stay ice at 1.5. And if we go up to 2, it's even less likely that there'll be any ice. So if all of Greenland melted, that adds 7 meters, which is 23 feet of sea level rise. So there goes a lot of New York, Philadelphia, Washington. This is showing what the sea level, what the coastline would look like if all the Earth's ice melted. So you see, Florida's gone. San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, all the big cities. This is just in the United States. Now, worldwide, it's terrifying what that'll mean. So how much, I ask, how much will it cost to replace New York City? A whole lot less than anything the Green New Deal might cost. So you think that climate change and things only happen to other people? Well, take a look at this. This is a map of where these 40 years of billion-dollar weather and climate disasters happen. And so if you look at the scale there, that tells me that Connecticut in those 40 years had somewhere between 13 and 24 billion-dollar weather and climate disasters. So it doesn't just happen to other people, it happens to us. Here's what it looked like from Irvine, California in October of last year. Does it look like Earth? Or does it look like hell on Earth? Doesn't look very good to me. But here's the good news. So I've not been trying to give you a gloom and doom scenario. That's not the purpose. The purpose is the opposite. It's to encourage you to get active. It's not too late. We can save the earth for future generations, but we must act immediately. And what can you do? First, you have to know what's happening. You have to educate yourself about the state of the earth. And don't do that on social media. Do it at established websites with established scientists that know what they're talking about, not John Doe's blog. Then discuss it with your family, with friends, and with everyone that will listen to you. Then you have to get active in politics. You have to write or email your representatives and let them know how important these things are to you. And know where your representatives or the people up for election, the candidates, stand on these issues, and vote for only those who will help preserve these things. And then there are lots of other actions, but the big ones are to discuss it, get active in politics, do what you can to learn about what's really going on. Americans are not very good about discussing climate change or biodiversity loss at all. So we have to change that. Other actions, now these are just my opinions: plant trees, grow a garden. You don't need a lawn that you have to fertilize and mow and all that just to make it look good. Grow a garden so you have your own organic vegetables there. Hang your clothes on a clothesline instead of putting them in a electric or gas dryer. Tune up your car. Make sure your tire pressures are good. That'll save you on miles per gallon. Drive to increase your miles per gallon. Drive conservatively. Set your thermostats lower in the winter and higher in the summer. Try to eat with health in mind. It's like the Mediterranean diet or the DASH diet or the MIND diet. There are several that are better for you. They'll be cheaper to purchase and make you healthier. And then anything you can think of to be kinder to the earth. So we're in a bad situation. We're in the era of the Holocene now, which has been remarkably stable weather. The climate has, the world temperature has varied in just a very narrow range of plus or minus 1 degree Celsius for the last 12,000 years. And very soon after the Holocene started, we started agriculture. It was the agricultural revolution. And that enabled civilization to begin. But it happened simultaneously on several different continents. That means that we knew about agriculture, but just couldn't practice it before then because of the variability of the climate. There were times in the last 100,000 years that Homo sapiens were down to somewhere on the order of 15,000 individuals that were fertile adults. We almost went extinct already. But then along came the Holocene and saved us. But we took advantage of it. And now we're transitioning to an epoch that most people or many scientists are calling the Anthropocene, meaning that we humans are the biggest source of change on the planet. And if we keep going on the path we're going, this business as usual, with all the governments saying we need growth. We don't need growth. We need thoughtful development that is sustainable. What we're seeing is that there are tipping points. And if we raise the temperature a certain amount, things are going to happen that we can't possibly stop. So, I mean, this is something we've all got to get active to do if we want a future for ourselves and our children. Anyway, thank you very much. Please educate yourself and get active. We'll hopefully see you in July at our second Saturday at the Observatory. So, good evening.
Thank you, Monty. If you have questions, you can submit them through Facebook or YouTube, or you can email them to the Observatory at mccarthy.observatory@gmail.com. And while I wait to see if any questions come in, reminder that next month's Second Saturday Stars event, which will be on July 10th, will be held at the Observatory. Okay. No questions coming in, Monty. I want to thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for hosting it.
And we'll end the presentation tonight. Thank you, everyone.